Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Immigration and Medical Insurance Update Q&A session for international students at SFU. My name is Mei-Ling Gao, and I am an International Student Advisor, Immigration Specialist at Simon Fraser University, and I will be your presenter today. It's my great pleasure that I'm joined today by my colleague, Karen, Manager of the International Student Advising and Programs, as our moderator for the session. Thank you, Karen, for joining us tonight. Now, before going through the agenda, I would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that SFU is located on the unceded Coast Salish territory, the traditional territory of Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Kazee nations. All right, so in this slide, just to quickly go over your agenda today, we will first start an overview of recent updates on Canadian immigration policies, as well as travel restrictions on entries to Canada, and updates on medical insurance. Now, this component of the presentation is being recorded. We will then devote the remainder of the session to the Q&A part later. Due to the evolving nature of COVID-19, we have witnessed many changes taking place very rapidly. So the information I'll be sharing with you today may change or maybe change as we speak. The information I share with you today is current to the best of my knowledge as of today's date, which for those who are watching the recording will be in the evening of May 31st, 2021. For those who also register for the live session, we will be sending you an email in the next few days with a list of resources you can refer to. I thought it may also be helpful just to start with an overview of the exact topics we'll be covering during our updates today, so you know what to expect. So we're going to go through those one by one. As you can see, like I said, we have quite a list of updates to go through today. So with no further ado, we're going to move on to the next slide. All right, so I would say it would be an understatement to say that has been many changes to immigration policies over the past year, as well as when it comes with the post-secondary education in the year of 2020 and 2021. Since spring 2020, SFU has shifted to online learning in response to COVID-19, and this has continued since then. For summer 2021, the majority of the courses are still offered remotely. And we have all been patiently, I know you have been all been patiently waiting for more detail to be shared about the upcoming fall 2021 term. Last Wednesday, SFU announced its decision on planning for substantial return to campus for the fall 2021. And what this means is that approximately 70 to 80% of the classes in fall 2021 will be in person with safety plans in place. Now, it is also worth of mentioning or highlighting that the fall 2021 will be a transitional term. And what does that mean is not all courses will be delivered in person. And details about which courses will be offered remotely or in person will be available in late June before the enrollment dates for the fall terms opens up on July 5th. Now, unfortunately, at this point, we don't have any further insights to share with you on the fall term planning other than the information that was sent out to the university community last Wednesday. As noted in the email, more information should be made available in late June in terms of what courses will be offered in person or online for fall 2021. I would also encourage you to review SFU's Return to Campus webpage to learn more about fall term planning. And if you have any specific questions that are not already addressed in the Return to Campus FAQ page, you could also email them directly to covid19@sfu.ca. Now, since the pandemic, remote learning has appeared to be the new norm now. One good thing to know is that from an immigration standpoint, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, known as IRCC, confirmed very early on that remote learning as a result of COVID-19 will not negatively impact your study permit compliance. Some of you have also asked about what your options will be if you can be in Canada for the fall term. What will happen if you chose to start your program remotely while being outside of Canada in the fall, but later was refused for study permit? So from an immigration perspective, you may begin your programs online from outside of Canada without having a valid study permit, but you must have a valid study permit for all the in-Canada components of studies later. If you have not been approved for a study permit, please do carefully consider your own comfort level with starting your studies without securing a study permit approval first. As not all study permit applications get approved, that is also why we strongly recommend that students should apply for a study permit as early as possible. Now, there's also no guarantee on approval of subsequent study permit application either. So let's say if your first study permit application was refused, unfortunately, and you decide to apply it again, you may or may not be successful with that second application. Now, in weighting your options, you should also factor SFS deadlines for admission deferral, course withdrawals, and refunds into a decision-making process. Ultimately, it will be up to your own comfort level in determining how you want to proceed with the studies and what will be the best option for you, such as deferral admissions or starting and continuing a program remotely, if you won't receive a decision, a positive decision on your study permit prior to starting a program. Also keeping in mind that you must have a valid study permit to study if you're physically in Canada, even if your course is being currently offered remotely due to COVID-19. When it comes to post-graduation work permit, the Canadian government has also introduced extended flexibility on post-graduation work permit eligibility for students studying remotely from outside Canada. So now under normal circumstances, so that's before COVID-19 period, remote learning outside Canada will not be counted towards the length nor the eligibility for the post-graduation work permit. However, due to COVID, under the expanded temporary measures, eligible students may complete up to 100% of their program remotely from outside Canada and still qualify for post-graduation work permit, provided that they meet all the requirements. Now, you may have heard previously that you will need to spend at least 50% of a program in Canada to qualify the postgrad work permit. I want to note that this 50% requirement has already been removed, and that information was updated back in February this year. Additionally, time spent studying outside Canada through December 31st can be counted towards the length of a post-graduation work permit. Now, under the current policy, time spent outside of Canada after that date will be deducted from the length of the postgrad work permit. So to keep in mind of that. The expanded flexibility on the postgrad work permit will apply to eligible students who have been enrolled in a program that is eligible for the postgrad work permit, since March 2020, or they have started or will start a program between spring 2020 and fall 2021. And they have already hold a valid study permit, or they have been approved for a study permit, or they apply for a study permit before they start the program, pending on approval of that study permit application at the end. So if you meet all those requirements, remote learning outside of Canada until December 31st, 2020 may still be counted towards the length of the post-graduation work permit. So that's really, good news for our students to know. Now, remote learning definitely has also created some of its own unique challenges to our students. So with fall being a transitional term, there could be other reasons or factors that are beyond your control, which may impact the ability to enroll as a full-time student in fall 2021, or to come to Canada to take a full-time course load in fall 2021. If you have to take a term off or take a reduced workload in the summer, there are some immigration implications you should keep in mind. So first of all, I would like to clarify that which terms are considered as academic session for immigration purpose at SFU. So for undergrad students, spring and fall semester are considered as academic sessions. And for graduate students, academic session will include each spring, summer, and fall terms. Now, for undergrad students, as only spring and fall terms are considered as academic sessions for immigration purpose, so your enrollment status for undergrad students in the summer term will have no negative impact on the study permit or the post-graduation work permit eligibility. Now, on the other hand, generally speaking, part-time enrollment status or taking an academic session off will negatively impact students' eligibility to work on and or off campus in a given term. So for example, if you want to work on campus or off campus in fall 2021 in Canada, then you must be enrolled as a full-time student in fall 2021 and meet other requirements to be eligible to work under the provision of the study permit. Now, one exception to the full-time enrollment requirement is actually being a full-time student in the final term. So what does that mean is if fall 2021 will be your final term, you can still maintain work eligibility with a part-time course load in your final semester only if you were full-time in all the other required academic sessions throughout your studies. If you are eligible to work on or off campus under a study permit, note that there's no restriction on the number of working hours for on-campus employment, but for off-campus employment, you may only work up to 20 hours per week during an academic session and full-time during regular schedule break. Now, the regular schedule break will include the break in between the terms, reading week, and for undergrad students, summer term may also be considered as a regular schedule break if meeting certain requirements. So for an undergrad student, if you were enrolled full-time for both the spring and the fall terms in the same calendar year, then the summer term in between is considered as a regular schedule break. For instance, as an undergrad student, if you were enrolled full-time in spring 2021 and will enroll full-time again in fall 2021, then the summer in between the summer 2021 is a regular schedule break, which means that you can work on a full-time basis under your study permit in the summer, regardless of you're enrolled as a full-time student or part-time, or if you want to take the summer term off. Now, one thing I also like to clarify is that if summer is your last term at SFU, then you can consider the summer term as a regular schedule break because you will not return to full-time student status in the following fall semester. So to be eligible to work in the summer as your final semester at SFU, you must either be enrolled as a full-time student, or if you'll be completing your studies in the summer as a part-time course load, as we mentioned, you have to make sure that you have enrolled full-time in each academic session prior to that final summer semester. Now, on a similar note, if summer is your first term at SFU, you can't consider summer as a regular schedule break either, because you must be enrolled full-time in an eligible degree, diploma, or certificate programs in the terms immediately before and immediately after a schedule break. I know that's quite a lot of information there. Now, regarding the post-graduation work permit, continuous full-time enrollment in each academic session is one of the requirements that must be met to be eligible for the post-grad work permit. Now, in 2020, RCC has introduced some flexibilities on enrollment requirements. So if you were unable to enroll full-time in the spring 2020 and or summer 2020 due to COVID-19, then by taking a part-time studies or taking the term off in spring and or summer 2020 will not negatively impact your eligibility for the postgrad work permit. However, I want to emphasize that this flexibility has not been extended beyond summer 2020. So what does that mean is since last fall, for 2020, you must resume to maintain continuous full-time enrollment in each academic session to meet the requirements for the post-graduation work permit. So for some reason, if you have to take a reduced workload by enrolling part-time in the fall 2021, it will negatively impact your eligibility for the post-grad work permit. Now, one exception to that continuous full-time requirement for the post-grad work permit is also the part-time enrollment in the final term. So if you will be graduating with a part-time course load, your part-time enrollment status in the final term shall not impact your eligibility for the work permit. Now, for grad students, if you are on authorized leave for less than 150 days, then by taking an authorized leave up to 150 days will also not negatively impact your work permit eligibility for the post-graduation work permit. I want to note that this authorized leave of absence policy is only just for grad students at SFU. Some of you have also asked how to proceed with the post-graduation work permit as you'll be graduating in this summer. Now, in support of a post-grad work permit applications, you must have a letter from SFU confirming that you have met the graduation requirements. So please review our website for detailed instruction and handout guide on how to apply for post-grad work permit. If you have had any gaps in continuous full-time enrollment in each academic sessions, please contact us for case-specific advice on how to address the periods of part-time studies or terms off in the context of a post-graduation work permit applications. Now, for more information about full-time student status, how that is defined, or implication of taking a term off, or studying part-time, definition of regular schedule break, please also visit our enrollment requirements for international student page, which we have recently updated and added more detailed information there. Just a quick note about the temporary grading options for our undergrad students. So again, in early January, the university announced a temporary pilot grading system of pass, credit, non-credit, which stands for P, CR, and C for undergrad students for the 2021 spring, summer, and fall. So we have confirmed that this pilot temporary grading system will not impact or change your enrollment status in a given term. So for example, if you're enrolled in 9 units in the summer term and end up choosing an NC grade for one of those courses, that is worth of 3 units, it will not change your overall full-time enrollment status. Now, as our office does not advise on academic matters, so if you would like to learn more about the temporary grading system or discussing your options, if you can opt in for the temporary grading options, you may consult with your academic or your faculty advisors directly on that note. So this is really the most heavy content, I would say, during today's presentations. Things will get easier as we move on. I know there's a lot of information there. As mentioned earlier, we're going to send you an emails in the next couple of days with all the resources, and we'll be also sharing the links later on once the presentation is ended. Now, in the past few months, there have been quite a few updates on immigration application processing, which include a few positive news that I would like to share with you. As of April 12th, IRCC has reverted back to the pre-pandemic processing. So hopefully this is going to help to reduce their backlog. Now, we're going to dive more in terms of what does it mean by reverting back to pre-pandemic processing. Aligned with that, IRCC is streamlining its overseas processing time for study permit applications. So you may have also been aware of this recent announcement made by IRCC in April that a complete study permit application submitted outside Canada by May 15 will receive a decision by August 6th. Now, on the other hand, if you were unable to submit a complete application by May 15th, note that the application received outside of Canada after this date will still be processed as soon as possible, but there will just be no guarantee that the application will be finalized before the start of the fall term. Processing delays may still also occur if you're unable to submit a complete application due to COVID-19 restrictions in your home country, such as reduced service providers at visa application centers. Now, currently, study permit applications submitted outside Canada is displayed as 8 weeks. Now, this 8 weeks does not include additional times for biometrics enrollment or immigration medical examination needed if applicable. Now, if you are currently outside of Canada with an expired or soon to expire study permit, you will not be eligible to have your study permit extended within Canada, because the in-Canada study permit extension process will only apply to applicants who are physically in Canada at the time of their application submission. So by applying for a study permit outside of Canada, it's not considered as a study permit extension process, but instead it will just be considered a new study permit application that will be processed by the visa office outside of Canada. Although you may start or continue study your program remotely from outside of Canada without having a study permit, it's important to remember that you must have a valid study permit to pursue courses while you are physically in Canada. And again, since not all study permits do get approved, it is strongly recommended that you should apply for a study permit as early as possible if you need one, because there may be other factors that could delay the processing times. Now, if you're currently in Canada, you will be allowed to continue to remain and study in Canada under maintained status, which are formally known as implied status, as long as you apply before your current study permit expires. So if you're here in Canada, you must apply to extend your study permit before your current one expires in order to maintain your status as a temporary resident here. So that has not changed. Now, the current study permit extension application processing time for in-Canada applicants are currently listed as 57 days. And one thing I also want to emphasize or clarify is that the May 15 deadlines And 8-week streamlined processing times only apply to study permit applications that are submitted outside of Canada. So the May 15 deadline does not apply to the in-Canada study permit extension applications. Information on how to apply for study permit extension in Canada or new study permit outside of Canada is available on our website. You're more than welcome to contact us if you have any additional questions after reviewing those informational guides online. Now, with RSCC reverting back to the pre-pandemic processing times, as of April 12, 2021, RSCC announced that the deadlines for applicants who need to provide missing information or documents, including biometrics, will no longer be automatically extended. Therefore, there are few implications on the biometrics enrollment and submission of additional documents you should keep in mind if you'll be applying for a study permit outside of Canada. So first of all, biometrics exemption for in-Canada applicants are still in place until further notice. So if you'll be applying to extend your study permit or applying for a postgrad work permit in Canada, at this point, you will still be exempt from the biometrics enrollment requirement. For outside of Canada applicants, you will be required to complete the biometrics enrollment process unless you have given your biometrics to RSCC in the past 10 years or if you are exempted. Now, if you applied for a study permit outside of Canada before April 12, 2021, you will receive a final letter from RSCC to ask you to give your biometrics within 30 days. If you apply for the study permit after April 12, please just follow the specific deadlines as indicated on your biometrics instruction letter. Now, in cases where you are unable to provide biometrics by the deadlines indicated in the instruction letter, such as maybe closure in the visa application center due to COVID-19 lockdown, you should contact RSCC to request an extension. Note that it's also not recommended to travel to another city or country to give your biometrics if your current visa application center is closed. Again, if you have any questions on how to submit a request on extension of biometric enrollment, feel free to reach out to us directly. Similarly, if you were required to provide additional documents or information in support of a study permit application submitted outside of Canada, as of April 12th, you will receive a final request letter within a 30-day deadline to provide the necessary information and documents. If you're not able to comply with that specific deadline, you must request for an extension along with a reasonable explanation, along with proof, why you are unable to comply with the deadline and your efforts in meeting that deadline. The final decisions will be made by the officers to determine whether or not the request on extension will be granted. The other thing I want to flag this for you is if you have applied for a study permit outside of Canada using documents from another post-secondary institution, before your application is approved, you must notify RSCC of the change to your school through their web form and include a copy of your SFU letter of acceptance, as well as a confirmation of enrollment letter from GoSFU if applicable. Now, if the application has already been approved, so if your study permit application has been approved, but you did not provide documents from SFU, according to RSCC, you must apply for a new study permit and waiting for approval before you can travel to Canada. Now, if you're currently a valid study permit holder, what does that mean? It's not just a letter of approval. You actually have the actual study permit with you, and you're transferring, from another institution to SFU, then you will just need to notify RSCC by completing the designated learning institution transfer process that you will be starting at SFU. Another important update or the reminder is the validity of immigration medical examination. So if you have been living in a designated country for consecutive more than 6 months in the past 12 months prior to a travel to Canada, you must have a valid immigration medical examination to facilitate your entrance into Canada. Note that your immigration medical examination is only valid for 12 months. So your exam must be valid at the time you seek to enter Canada. So for example, if you have been approved for a study permit outside of Canada, which means you hold a letter of introduction confirming your study permit has been approved, but your immigration medical examination would have been expired by the time you travel to Canada, then note that you must undergo another immigration medical examination before traveling to Canada. Without having an updated immigration medical exam on file, you may not be allowed to board your flights or may encounter issues when you're trying to enter Canada. So that's a very important reminder. for you to keep in mind. All right, so let's talk about the million-dollar questions on the travel restrictions and exemptions. We have also received many questions on this topic. The most common questions we're receiving lately is, can I travel to Canada, or when will the travel restriction will be lifted? Do you think it will be lifted in late summer? Now, on May 21st, it has just been confirmed that the current travel restrictions on entries into Canada are in place until June the 21st. As of the COVID-19 continues to evolve, the current deadlines may be subject to change or be lifted or maybe extended further if needed. Again, we don't really have a crystal ball. I can't really give you definite responses on when the travel restriction will be lifted or changes. The best thing for you to do is really to keep monitoring the most updated information from the Government of Canada website for any possible updates and announcements on the travel restrictions and exemptions. Now, under the current travel restrictions, you must meet the following requirements to travel to Canada as an international student. So first of all, you must either have a valid study permit or you have been approved for a study permit with a letter of introduction. You must be also attending at a designated learning institution with COVID-19 readiness plan approved before you travel to Canada. Last but not least, you still need to be traveling for non-optional and non-discretional purpose. So first of all, SFU does have an approved COVID-19 readiness plan in place, so that's really good news. Now, the assessment on the non-discretional purpose will still apply and be reviewed by the Border Service Office at a port of entry on case-by-case assessments. But under the current travel exemption, students are no longer required to have a special letter from the institution to demonstrate that they are attending in-person class, or due to large time zone difference, they need to make a case for non-discretional or essential purpose of travel. So if you currently do have a valid study permit or have been approved for study permit or study Canada with a letter of acceptance and or confirming your enrollment letter, like a confirmation of enrollment letter as approved your attendance at SFU, then your purpose of travel will be considered as non-discretional. Now, unless there's very clear evidence that you are not coming to Canada to study or for other discretional or optional purposes such as tourism, then you may not be allowed to enter Canada. Now, note that if you're a returning student and you're actually taking the summer term off, and you're planning to come back in Canada in the summer, we advise against making a travel plan back to Canada when you're unable to prove that you are enrolled in the summer terms. And also, if fall 2021 will be your first term at SFU, it is also strongly not recommended that you arrive too early, which is more than 4 weeks before the start of the fall term. As noted on RCC's website, if arriving too early before the start of your first term in Canada, you may be refused entry into Canada. Note that a border service officer will make the final decision to determine whether or not you will be eligible to enter Canada. And also, please don't make any travel plans to Canada until you are sure that you meet all the requirements for entry, including final approval of your study permit application or having valid study permit, have a valid temporary resident visa or electronic travel authorization if required based on your citizenship. Please also visit our COVID-19 FAQ page for a list of documents that you should carry with you when traveling to Canada. Many of you have also heard about the flight ban on direct flights from India and Pakistan that has been extended until June 21st, 2021. Now, if you're planning to arrive to Canada through an indirect route from India and Pakistan, you must obtain a COVID-19 pre-departure test from a third country before continuing your journey to Canada. We understand that this definitely has created a very much inconvenience and last-minute disruption to many of our students' travel plans to Canada. And again, at this point, we don't really have any insights on whether or not this travel ban may be extended further. So please do stay tuned for more information once the Government of Canada will be available to make announcement or update information on their websites. Now, immediate family members such as spouse or common law partner, dependent children may be able to come with you to Canada provided they have the proper immigration documents and their purpose of travel are non-discretional. So generally speaking, family members who are seeking to accompany and support and get themselves established during their studies in Canada will be considered to travel for non-discretional purpose. But depending their country of nationality, they may also need to have a valid temporary resident visa or ETA to travel to Canada. You should also check with the airlines directly for the most up-to-date travel information and any specific documentations or requirements needed for boarding purpose. A quick recap or tips just to remember on this important topic and considerations is final decision always fall within the officer at a port of entry, and we can't 100% confirm for you whether or not you'll be allowed to travel. But if you have any questions, if you plan to travel soon, and you would like to further advise, what documentation you needed, feel free to reach out to us or review our COVID-19 FAQ page for more information. Please review the ROCC's website for list documents that you should carry along with you. And which will include having a valid immigration medical examinations, if applicable. It's also recommended that you should check with the airlines in advance just to clarify if they require any specific documentation for you to board your flights in advance. Sometimes the airline may require specific documents, even though they may not seem to be necessary under the current travel restriction and exemptions policies. Again, check the Government of Canada website for the most up-to-date information on travel restrictions and entry requirements. And in the next slide, we're going to dive a little bit more into the quarantine requirements and the testing and also the mandatory hotel stopover. All right, so we have also received many questions for you regarding the quarantine requirements and exemptions, including the mandatory 3-day hotel stopover. So first of all international travelers, unless exempted, must quarantine for 14 days upon their arrival, even if they don't have symptoms of COVID-19. Now, this 14-day quarantine period includes a mandatory stay in a government-approved hotel. And for those traveling by air, while you await the results of the COVID-19 test when you're going to take when you arrive in Canada. The hotel stay must be pre-booked and prepaid for the travelers and will be at your own cost. Now, some of you have asked if there will be an exemption for international travelers who are fully vaccinated. At this point, all travelers, regardless of vaccination status, must follow testing and quarantine requirements, including the 3-night hotel stopover. That will be for the travelers arriving by air. The 14-day period begins on the day that you arrive in Canada. I do want to stress that even though it does seem to be quite strict, the 2-week quarantine is a mandatory requirement. If you fail to quarantine, this could result in fines and even imprisonment. Now, after you arrive in Canada, a representative of the Government of Canada will call you to monitor the compliance with the mandatory quarantine or isolation. In planning for self-isolation, the SFU COVID Assistance and Remote Engagement Support CARES programs aims to provide students with the necessary support and resources for accommodation, food, other needs, and to create a safe and supporting environment. There are different packages of support offered through CARES. For more information, please visit CARES program website. Now, in preparation of your travel to Canada, there are also a number of required COVID-19 tests for travelers at this time. So all travelers aged 5 years or older must provide a negative COVID-19 test results, and there are no exceptions to the vaccinated travelers at this time. Air travelers must take a test within 72 hours of the scheduled departure time of the last direct flight to Canada and show proof of the negative test results. Note that airlines will refuse boarding to travelers who are unable to provide a valid COVID-19 test result. If you'll be entering Canada by land, you are required to show a negative test result from the test taken in the United States within 72 hours before you arrive at the land border. Alternatively, if you have previously had COVID-19, you may show positive results from a test taken between 14 and 90 days prior of your arrival. Now, this would also exempt you from the post-arrival testing requirements as well. For travelers who are not exempt, upon arrival at the port of entry, you will be given a second COVID-19 test. For air travelers, you can pre-register for your arrival test to make the arrival process smoother. You will also be given a test kit upon arrival and will need to follow the instruction to do a third test on day 8 of your quarantine period. You can only leave your place of quarantine if you receive a negative COVID test result from your day 8 test and you have completed your mandatory 14-day quarantine. Now, if at any point you test positive for COVID-19 after arrival, please make sure you follow the instruction provided by the public health official. Now, the information we went through about the quarantine requirements, including the mandatory stopover for traveling through air, those are all in force and effect until June 21st, and because this is when the current quarantine order was set to expire. Moving into late summer, at this point, again, we don't really have a crystal ball on that, so we don't know if there will be any updates or changes to that. Again, we will have to closely monitor the Government of Canada for any updated information or if there will be any updates or changes later. All right. Now, there are also quite a few requirements all related to ArriveCan, which is Government of Canada's digital tool to help our travelers comply with the border measures. All travelers coming to Canada by land or air are required to provide travel, contact, and quarantine information through ArriveCan within 72 hours of your arrival. You must also provide your travel history for the 14 days before entering Canada. You will need to be ready to show your ArriveCan receipt when seeking entry into Canada. You must also confirm that you have arrived at your place of quarantine or the government authorized hotel in Canada through the ArriveCan, and those in quarantine must also complete a daily COVID-19 symptom self-assessment through ArriveCan during your quarantine period. Now, in addition to the federal government requirement, there are also some other places where you should register your travel plan. So first off, the BC provincial government also has an online self-isolation plan for travelers to submit in advance of travel. Now, this one's optional, but strongly recommended. You must also register your travel plans and your isolation plan with SFU as early as possible once you know your travel day. So this is going to really help SFU to better coordinate support for you during your quarantine period, including providing any support you needed with developing your quarantine plan. If you have received the final approval of your study permit from outside Canada, which means you apply for a study permit outside Canada has been approved, you should also complete the Vancouver International Airport expedited processing submission form process. So this is going to help to speed up the process of issuing and getting a study permit at the port of entry upon arrival in Canada. Again, this was optional, but strongly recommended just to streamline your arrival process. I know it's a lot to remember. Again, we'll be sending you a list of resources after the session to help you to keep track and stay up to date on everything. Now, last but certainly not least, medical insurance, the most exciting topic of all of tonight. It is especially important to ensure that you have adequate medical insurance coverage for you during your stay in Canada. For those of you who are located here in BC, the British Columbia Medical Service Plan, BCMSP, has made some temporary policy changes due to COVID-19, which you can find directly on their website, including providing coverage to students who are holding maintained status in Canada while waiting for study permit extensions or in the process changing to a post-graduation work permit. Note that the study permit must have expired on December 1st, 2020 or later if meeting the requirements. The temporary coverage with BCMSP can be requested and extended until October 31st, 2021, and you must apply directly with BCMSP. They are also provided coverage for medical service related to suspected or confirmed cases of COVID-19 for individuals in BC who are not eligible for MSP. During the waiting period for MSP coverage, it is strongly recommended that you should ensure that you are properly covered, such as enrolling into private medical insurance during the waiting period. Many of you have questions related to the GARMI and the secondary medical insurance. Now, there are quite a few different opt-out and opt-in days. So I have grouped them in this little, in two different tables just for the ease of reading here. If summer 2021 is your first term, you're automatically enrolled in the GARMI at SFU plan for your first term. But you will not be automatically enrolled in the GARMI plan in any of the subsequent terms at SFU. So it is your responsibility to make sure that you will have adequate medical insurance coverage by applying for MSP during your stay in Canada. If you're starting your first term outside of Canada in summer 2021, unfortunately, the opt-out Canada opt-out deadlines, the outside of Canada opt-out deadline has already passed as of yesterday, May 30, 2021. But if you're currently in Canada and you have a valid MSP, you may still apply to opt out of the GARMI policy with a full refund by June the 15th. There's also a partial opt-out deadline for students who don't have access to MSP by the June 15th deadline. So if your MSP coverage will kick in after June the 15th, and you have never used the GARMI policy by July 31st, you may still be eligible for a partial opt-out on your GARMI policy for the unused portion. If you have purchased the interim coverage with GARMI, which is the coverage that you can purchase on a daily basis with a minimum of 60 days, note that there's no opt-out options for the interim coverage. Now, let's talk about secondary medical insurance. So if summer 2021 is your first term, you must manually opt in for the secondary medical insurance if you want to enroll in that. So for undergrad students, it will be the secondary medical insurance will be the Simon Fraser Student Society, SFSS, Health and Dental Plan. For grad students, it is a Graduate Student Society, GSS, Health and Dental Plan. Note that the opt-in date for enrollment into the secondary medical insurance for the summer term has already passed. But moving forward, upon your enrollment in the fall 2021, you will be automatically enrolled in the secondary medical insurance for a 1-year period starting from September 1st, 2021 to August 31st, 2022. Now, if you're currently covered under SFSS or GSS secondary medical insurance, there is a retroactive opt-out period, which is from July 5th to July 19th in the summer 2021 for students who are outside of Canada and who meet the federal requirements. So please visit the Student Care website for more information on the eligibility requirements to make informed decisions on the opting out process and option for the secondary medical insurance. All right, so thank you so much for your patience going through all this update. I know that there's a lot of information packed in today's session, and we will now move on to our question and answer part. I will end the recording in a moment. So for those of you watching after the fact, thank you very much for joining us and watching the recording. We will also be offering this session again on June the 25th and one more in July. So stay tuned for more information. Visit our events and programs website for more information. For any of you who will be starting your first term at SFU in fall 2021, we will also have separate Get SFU Ready sessions for you to join in late summer. So stay tuned for more information and register for the Get SFU Ready sessions. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you in the future workshop or maybe in one-on-one advising sometime soon. And I'm going to end the recording now.